England have just lost in a World Cup quarter-final to France, and I demand to know from John Mackenzie whether they were unlucky, John.
Well, I think when you consider the fact that Harry Kane missed a late penalty to take the game to extra time, then you have to say that England were unlucky. And if you actually look at the course of the game, the chances that England created were probably better than the chances that France created. But actually what I think would tell a better story of what's going on is if we take into account something called game state.
What is game state, and why did you keep saying it to me during the game?
So game state is anything that impacts the way that teams are playing in the game. So it could be a red card, that's a really good example of game state. Teams are going to play differently if they're a player down. In this game, actually, it was the scoreline that impacted what was going on. So obviously during the game, we saw Tchouaméni hit a lovely shot from this sort of area into the bottom corner. France were then 1-0 up, and what they started doing then was just sitting a little bit deeper. They were happy to allow England to have the ball and build up and try and score against them. And obviously England didn't manage to do that until quite late on in the game, but when they did that, then France came out and were a little bit more expansive, I think. They had that moment where they had a couple of chances in quick succession, went the goal up, and then again were happy to sit deep again. So the game state impacted the way that France were playing. It impacted the way then that England could progress the ball down the field, and so maybe just looking at the chances that were generated in the game is not the best way of looking at who was dominating the game at any one time.
So are you saying England were or weren't unlucky? I mean, one of the reasons I thought England were a bit unlucky is because of how well they dealt with Mbappe, who seems to not really be in the game at all.
Yeah, so the big question of going into this game is like, how do you deal with Mbappe? So France play in a 4-2-3-1. And they have Mbappe over here on the left-hand side of this forward area. England play Kyle Walker to cover him, but the thing about Mbappe is that he does not track back in defensive situations. So what we're going to see in these sorts of situations then is this idea for England that these sorts of areas are going to be quite dangerous for them because Mbappe is not going to be falling into that space. You can maybe progress the ball down those parts of the field. But I think France also had a plan for mitigating these problems, because what they do is they don't expect Mbappe to drop in as deep as they might expect Dembele to drop in on the other side of the field. What they do is they pull him into a more central space. They have him and Giroud sort of forming the first line of pressure in their press, and rather than then having Mbappe dropping in, they actually drop Griezmann in here. And so you now have a midfield three like this. Dembele drops in, you've basically got a 4-4-2 here, and this area now is going to be patrolled by Rabiot. So he's going to keep an eye on this sort of area and make sure that there's no problems coming through there. Now England tried to make the most of that by moving Henderson then into these areas in possession. So Henderson moves into this area, and the idea will be that England are going to try and work the ball, progress the ball into these sorts of areas. We saw Saka be really dangerous through the game, especially up against Theo Hernandez, because he was able to get isolated against him. And then we saw some dangerous chances coming from these wide areas. So Kane had a chance in this sort of area. He nearly won a penalty at the edge of the box too. So they were using this side of the pitch, but it did come with a cost, because with Rabiot now, Tchouaméni here and Griezmann here, and Henderson dropping out, you now have 2 England midfielders up against 3 France midfielders. So the big thing there, I think, was that in this battle, by keeping Mbappe further up the pitch, forcing Walker back, and then forcing Henderson into wide areas, France knew they were going to dominate in that midfield area. Yes.
So unlucky then, is it? Or?
Well, I think, as we said, Harry Kane misses a late penalty, that's unlucky. But I think if you consider it from the point of view of France, Didier Deschamps will look at this and say, we controlled the game in the way that we wanted to control it, and we're quite happy with the way that it went.
So you're saying they were unlucky then?
Sure.
If you liked today's video, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you did like it, you might be interested in How to Watch Football, Tifo's illustrated book. It's 52 rules for understanding the beautiful game on and off the pitch, and it is the perfect holiday gift. How to Watch Football is out now in stores and online. See the link in the description to find out more, and thank you for watching today's video.